Okay, before that, let's remind what we have learned last time. Okay, so last time at the end of the lecture, we talk about the how the actual transformer behave under no load condition. Okay, so then we have construct our phasor diagram and we have identified there are two components. Uh, two components drawn by the transformer on no load. Okay, all the currents are consumed in the core, and we identified it as one component, that is IM component, which is the current actually used to magnetize the core, whereas there is another component which contribute to the losses of the core. Therefore, we name it as IC, or core component of the current. Okay, so we told this IM magnetizing current component, since it does not absorb any energy from the supply, we call it is a magnetization component, whereas the IC is known as the watt pull component, or that is the current actually responsible to the consuming all the power loss. Therefore, the total current is given by the vector addition of the IC and IM. That means the watt pull component and magnetization component. Okay, so then we have derived the equation like this. Okay, if the no load power factor is 5 naught, so then we can calculate the magnetization current as I naught sine 5 naught, whereas active current component IC can be calculated by I naught cos 5 naught. Therefore, the no load current is in relation with the IM and IC as like in this equation. Therefore, if we consider about the how much core loss occurred, so then if the total core loss at no load is W naught, so that is given by V1 I naught cos phi naught. Okay, so from the earlier we can identify that I naught cos phi naught is the active component of the no load current. Therefore, we can write W naught as V1 into IC. V1 into IC. Therefore, the total power loss occurred due to this watt pull component. Okay, so that is what we have discussed earlier. So in the last time we have stopped it here in the example. Okay, I told you to do this example in home. Okay, so did anyone have done this? Okay, let's do this part. Okay, so now okay, let's work this example. The no load current of transformer is given as 20 amperes. That means I naught is given as 20 amperes. Okay, so then we have the cos phi naught. Okay, cos phi naught as 0.3. Cos phi naught as 4.3, and then the N1 is given as 400. Okay, so then V1 is 400 as well, and frequency also 50 Hz. Okay, when we consider about the part A, so it is asked that to find the magnetization component of the no load current. That means you are asked to calculate the IM. That can be easily calculated by I naught sine phi naught. Okay, I naught sine phi naught. So that means I naught is 20, and you have to find out this phi naught. Okay, you can write sine. So phi naught can be calculated by cos inverse 0.3. Okay, if you calculate that, you can obtain the IM. Okay. So if you calculate that, it will be 19.079 amperes. Okay, that is the magnetization component of the no load current. So then B in the B it is asked that find the iron loss. Okay, so iron loss using the equation, we can use equation V1 I naught cos phi naught. Okay, so V1 is 400. The I naught current is 20 amperes and cos phi naught is 0.3. Okay, the total value would be 2.4 kilowatts. Okay, that is the iron loss. Okay, so here what we are talking about is a very huge transformer, therefore it has a high core loss as well. Okay, so now I think this part you can work out very easily. So then let's do the next part. Okay, in the last part you are asked to calculate the maximum flux in the core. Okay, so if you recall this equation, the induced EMF can be written as 4.44 times F into N1 into maximum flux. Okay, from that equation you can calculate the flux as, okay, since there is no internal resistance in the windings, we can assume that the V1 is equal E1. Okay, therefore E1 is 400, so it is divided by 4.44 into 50 into the number of turns in the primary is 400, therefore 400. So if you calculate this value, you will get 4.505 into 10 to the minus power of 3 Weber, or 4.505 milliweber. Okay, so if you are given this kind of a simple question, so actually this is a part of a question. Okay, so then you can work it out easily using these primary equations. Okay, so quickly you can note it down if you want. Okay, please student, try to join the class early as possible. Okay, otherwise if you are joining at different times, it will be really disturbing. Therefore join at the very beginning. Okay, I think you have okay with this, so let's move on to the today's lecture part. Okay, okay, so now earlier what we have talked about is the no load condition of a transformer, actual transformer. Okay, so now today what we are going to learn about is the how the transformer behave under load condition. Okay, so now Now let's see. This is the basic form of a transformer. Okay, there's a core, there's two windings are there, we have a load, so then we have a input power supply, so then E1 and E2 are the induced EMF in primary and secondary respectively. So then due to the current supply by the this AC supply, there will be I1 current that produces a magnetic field which has a flux of phi. Okay, it produces a magnetic flux phi in the core like this. Okay, so now let's consider what happened here. Okay, so now actually when we applying a current here, so there will be initial magnetic field is produced by the primary current. Okay, so then again so earlier what we have talked about is the condition no load condition. At that time it will be I2 is 0. Okay, therefore since I2 is 0, there are no current flowing in the secondary. There are no current flowing in the secondary at no load time. However, in load condition there will be current. Okay, if there is a current in the secondary, so then what happens is there will be magnetic field produced by it also. Okay, so therefore if the current is not 0, okay, so if we have a current higher than 0, so then which means there is a magnetic field produced by the secondary. Okay, okay, so now if you can see now there is a non-zero current flowing in the secondary at load condition. Due to that current there will be another magnetic field produced in the core. Okay, so as if you can understand it, so by the according to the Faraday Lenz law, so this field is produced in such a way that it opposes the original magnetic flux. Okay, so I think you can understand that there's a minus sign in Faraday's law due to this Lenz law. Okay, therefore the magnetic field produced will be in this direction as shown in the figure. Okay, so suppose if the flux produced by the secondary current as 5-2. Okay, so now due to this what happened is the total flux in the core momentarily reduced to 5 minus okay 5 minus 5-2. Okay, if the total flux reduces, so you can understand that the induced voltage in primary is given by the rate of change of flux. If the flux is reduced, so does the induced EMF in the primary. Okay, E1 reduces. Okay, so now if E1 reduces, since V1 is remain unchanged, the total current is increases. Okay, I1 increases because E1 momentarily drops. Therefore, I1 increases. As I1 increases, which means there's another magnetic field produced due to that additional current flow. Okay, so that is in the same direction that support the original flux. Okay, I think you can see that in a black the 5-2 dash. Okay, that is the magnetized, that is the magnetic flux produced by the additional current. Okay, so if I see, there will be I2 dash additional current flow to the primary due to that momentary drop in the primary voltage. Therefore the another magnetic field is produced, magnetic flux is produced in the core, that is 5-2 dash. Okay, so now what happened is this additional current neutralizes the flux produced by the secondary. Okay, therefore in other words the 5-2 dash is produced in such a way that 5-2 dash equal 5-2. Okay, therefore now again, since these are the flux produced by secondary is neutralized, so flux produced by this is since it is neutralized, so now the actual flux remain in the core is again the phi. Okay, so therefore you can understand that even in under full load or on load condition, the flux produced by primary in the core is remain unchanged. Okay, therefore the transformer is known as a constant flux machine. Okay, so that is because the magnetic field produced in the core is stationary one. Of course, it is a varying sinusoidally, but other than that, there is no variation. Okay, therefore we call the transformer as constant flux machine. Okay, so now what we can understand here is, in order to neutralize these flux, okay, phi 2 dash should be equal to phi 2, which means the additional electromotive force produced by the primary should be equal to the additional or due to the electromotive force produced in the secondary due to this load current. Okay, so therefore the electromotive force is the number of turns times current. Okay, so therefore the net, okay, suppose the change in the magnetomotive force is delta F, no, so then it is 0. Okay, so you can write this like this. Okay, so this is the magnetomotive force in the primary due to the additional current. Okay, so then this is due to the load current. Okay, so this is produced by primary. This is produced by the primary due to the additional current flow due to the this voltage drop. Okay, so therefore you can obtain the equation like this. Okay, I2 dash is the additional current flow to the primary which neutralize the flux in additional flux created by the secondary current. So then I2 dash is related to the I2 as in this equation. Okay, so you can write I2 dash as minus K times I2. Okay, usually this minus sign is omitted, so therefore we can write I2 dash in magnitude is equal to I2. Okay, therefore you can understand that the actually because of this sign comes into play when you draw the phasor diagrams. Okay, what does it mean by this minus sign is if the I2 and I2 dash are out of phase by 180 degrees. Okay, that means they are, if you draw, if we I2 in this direction, I2 dash in opposite direction. Okay, so that is the phasor diagram. When you this minus sign come to play only on the phasor diagram or vector diagrams. Okay, otherwise as a calculation as far as calculation are concerned, so I2 dash is equal to KI2. Okay, so that is the basic idea you have to get about transformer on load. Okay, so what you have to understand here is at no load condition there are no load current flow. That means I2 is 0, therefore no magnetic field produced by the secondary. However, in load condition there will be some positive current flow in the secondary. Due to that, there will be some additional magnetic flux produced in the core due to that current. Okay, So according to the Faraday's law, that flux is produced in a such a way that it opposes the original flux phi. Okay, so as a result, the total flux in the core momentarily drops. Okay, when it is drops, so according to Faraday's law, induced EMF in the primary reduces. Okay, when the induced EMF E1 reduces, the current I1 increases. That means there will be additional current I2 dash flow into the primary circuit. Okay, due to that additional current, again there will be another magnetic field produced in the core which neutralize the magnetic flux produced by the secondary. Okay, therefore ultimately there is no change in the flux. Okay, so since the flux remains stationary in the core, we identify this transformation machine which has constant flux. Okay, so we call him constant flux machine. Okay, so then in order to these flux to be neutralized, the net magnetomotive force produced by the additional current and the load current should be equal. Therefore, using that, you can write the total additional magnetomotive force is 0. That means N1 into I2 dash plus N2 I2 should be 0. Therefore, from that you can identify I2 dash is related to the secondary current as I2 dash equal minus constant times I2. That means if you consider the phases I2 and I2 dash, they are totally out of phase by 180 degrees. That means they are totally in a opposite direction. Okay, so those are the things you have to understand on transformer operation under on-load condition. Okay, so now if you have any question regarding that part, you can ask me. So you can note it down, the important things here. Are there any no questions? Okay, then I am assuming that you are. Huh? If there are no issues, I can. Hello. Okay, you have no questions. Okay. Okay, don't talk each other. If you have questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, mute yourself. Okay. Okay, mute yourself. All the students, please mute your speaker. Please mute the speaker, and then I will continue to the next slide. Okay. So now this is the summary of the things we have already learned earlier. So that is a transformer on-load condition. We can write the additional current flow to the primary I2 dash as K into the secondary current. Okay, K is the transformer ratio. Okay, so the ratio between the secondary turns divided by and secondary turns and primary turns. Okay, N2 divided by N1. Okay, so therefore since there is a minus sign which indicates that I2 dash phasor always always in antiphase with the load current phasor I2. Okay, so those are things important when we constructing the phasor diagram. Okay, therefore it is very important to understand the this minus sign. Okay, so then you can understand that now the primary current is the total current. That means the current required to magnetize the core, and we need another additional component I2 dash to neutralize the additional to neutralize the flux created by the secondary due to the secondary current. Okay, so therefore the total primary current should be the addition of these two. Okay, that means the magnetization or the no load current and the additional load current due to the fact that there is a load current. Okay, that means there is a positive I2, there is a I2 dash also become positive. Okay, therefore the total current is given by primary current is given by the no load current plus the additional current to neutralize the flux. Okay, so then for usually for large transformers, okay, when we consider about the large transformers, this I naught component is, if we consider the percentage, it is like less than 5%. Okay, so the I naught component, that means no load current component is very small in compared with this load component I2 dash. Therefore it is in situations if it is said that it is a large transformer, you can it is safe to assume that the I naught is negligible. Okay, therefore in some if you want to approximate something, so you can use the primary current is totally equal to that current required to neutralize the secondary flux. Okay, so those are the important things you should understand about the on-load operation of the transformer. Okay, so now I think you are clear in with that the operation on-load operation as well as no-load operation. Now let's try to construct the phasor diagrams for on-load transform. Okay, earlier we have draw the no-load transformer, the phasor diagrams for no-load condition. So now what you have to do is try to draw this. I will give you 2-3 minutes. Try to draw the phasor diagram for on-load transformer. Okay, so the only difference is you can understand that you have to first draw the phasor diagram for no load condition. So then the only addition is this I2 dash part, and okay, only part is this component, okay, and this component. Okay, so those are the only two components which are come new to the phasor diagram. Okay, so therefore basically the phasor diagram is as same as the no load phasor diagram, but the difference is you have to add those two phases. That means I2 dash phasor and I2, that means secondary current phasor. Okay, so when you draw, you have to consider about the three conditions. That means the load can be inductive, or load can be resistive, or load can be capacitive. Okay, depending on that the phasor diagram is little different. Okay, so now first try to draw the phasor diagram. Okay, consider the reference as the flux phasor. Okay, so this is the flux phasor, that is the reference. Okay, so first consider about the inductive load. That means the current phasor should be lagged by the current phasor should be lag the voltage phasor. Okay, so here you can further assume that the secondary internal resistance is 0. Therefore V2 should be equal to induced EMF E2. Okay, let's try to draw it. Okay, again, now first thing is let's draw the phasor diagram. So E1 and E2. Okay, so now E1 is minus dt. Okay, therefore I should draw it 90 degrees. That is E1. Okay, the same way E2 also same. Okay, that means minus d phi dt. Therefore that should be in phase with the that should be in phase with the E1. Okay, so that is okay. So then since this is inductive, what we have is inductive circuit, so therefore you can draw the V1 as 90 degrees to, so because this is the current phasor as well, because the current phasor and flux phasor is in phase, therefore the voltage phase should be 90 degrees leading. Okay, therefore V1 phasor should be like this. So then now since V2 is E2, okay, so that means the V2 phasor also lies in here. Okay, therefore if we consider inductive load, which is that means the current waveform is lagging. Okay, which means I can draw the I2, okay, like this. So I can write I2. Okay, so this is the secondary power factor angle. Okay, so now as earlier we have already derived that the I2 dash is minus K times I2. Okay, because of this minus sign, so it is in completely anti-phase, which means it is in totally in opposite direction. So then you can find the I2 dash phasor as like this. Okay, as earlier, if the no load power factor angle is phi naught, so okay, I naught vector is somewhere like this. Okay, this is the angle phi naught. Therefore, the earlier we understand that I1 should be equal to I naught plus I2 dash. Okay, so since these are different phases, we have to add them together. So okay, so this is the I1 phasor. Okay, this is the I1 phasor, and this is the input power factor angle. Okay, so that is actually how we can draw the phasor diagram for on-load transformer for inductive load. Okay, so if the load is resistive, which means the our power factor angle for secondary is 0. Okay, which means the I2 phasor should be in phase with the E2. Okay, therefore I2 dash should be also this should be I2 dash. Okay, so therefore I naught is same, so you can get the I1 to obtain the I1 phasor. Okay, so likewise you can build the phasor diagrams for on-load transformer under inductive load, under capacitive load, and under resistive load. Okay, so if I clear the drawing, this is for the phasor diagram for inductive load. So it is as we draw. So then this is for resistive load. Okay, so now try to draw the phasor diagram for capacitive load. Okay, this again. Okay, you can mark this angle as phi 2. Okay, so here phi 2 is 0. for capacitive load, you can find that this is the phasor diagram. Okay, so it is slightly, the what difference is very slight. Okay, so again, this is the power factor angle. Secondary power factor angle phi 2. Okay, now I think you get hold of the how you draw the phasor diagrams. Now let's move on to the do some example. Okay. Okay. Now try this example now. Okay. So there's a 400 to 200 volt transformer, takes 1.5 amperes current at a 0.4 lagging power factor on no load condition. Okay, so if the secondary supplies 50 ampere current at 0.8 power factor lagging, determine the primary current and input power factor. Okay, so first of all, again draw the phasor diagram. Okay, so this is phi. Okay, so this is V1. So this is the orange one is E2, blue one is E1. So this is also 90 degrees. So then for inductive load, it is lagging. Therefore, let's say this is I2. So suppose this is phi 2, and so okay, so that is the I2 dash phasor. So now consider the no load dash. Like this. Okay. So now this is the I1. Okay. So this angle is phi naught. So this angle is the phi 1. Okay. What you have asked to find out is the I1 okay, I1 and cos phi 1. Okay, those are the things you have to find. Okay, So it is given that the no load current, that means following things are given. I naught as 1.5 and 5 naught can be obtained by cos inverse 0.4. So phi 2 also can be calculated by cos inverse. It is given 0.8 lakh. Okay, so therefore you can calculate the phi naught and phi 1. So I2 also given as 50 amperes. Okay, so if you calculate, you get the I naught angle as 66.2. Okay, and phi 2 as 36.87. Okay, so now I can write the paces. Okay, so write I naught pacer as 1.5 and the angle is this much. Okay, this is the angle. Okay, suppose this is alpha naught. Alpha naught is 90 minus phi naught. Okay, phi naught is 66.42. Okay, 1.5 times 20. This is 23.58. Okay, degrees. So same way I can find I2 dash as 50. Again 90 degrees minus phi 2. Okay, so you can find this angle here is same as phi 2. Okay, therefore 90 minus 36.87. So this evaluate to 50, 51.52. Okay, so now I1 pacer is given by I naught pacer plus I2 dash. Okay, so now you can add the these two pacers together. Okay, to obtain the I1. Okay, so you can calculate the I1 as 26.315. In fact, this is 53.13. Okay, so this is the one 51. Okay, so now this is the 90 minus phi 1. Okay, therefore the cos phi 1 is cos 90 minus 51.52. Okay, if you obtain this, it will be 0.783. Okay, likewise you can easily calculate the primary current if you know the secondary current and other no load current. Okay, so now I think you can work out the similar problems. Now let's move on to the next section. Okay, so okay, now earlier in our all calculations and all the theoretical parts, when we derive theoretical equations, we assume that the windings has zero internal resistance. However, this is not actually accurate. It is incorrect because the winding has some significant resistance and it causes some significant power loss as well. Therefore, it is very important to include the internal resistance of the windings in our derived equations. Okay, so therefore, so what we can do is you can understand that the resistor is a very simple device. You can if you have a internal resistance, what you can do is you can keep the device and you can okay. So anyway, what we are talking about right now is about the winding resistance of the transformer. Okay, so now when we have internal resistance, what we can actually do is, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Okay, we don't have to worry too much about that. What we can do is even though it is internal to the system, since it is a resistor, we can remove it from the internal system and we can connect from the outside. Okay, therefore, so what I can do is so I can keep my transformer as ideal. Okay, ideal transformer. Okay, but the internal resistance of the windings can be considered as external to them. Okay, so it is because they are only the effect of the resistor is the voltage drop. Okay, so therefore the voltage drop and the power loss I squared are power loss. Okay, so that can be again modeled by the external resistor as well. Okay, it doesn't matter it is internal or external, the resistor behave the same way. Okay, it does not affect these induced voltages. Okay, so the resistor does not affect much to these induced E1 and E2 voltages and flux. Therefore, so we can remove it from the internal system and we can connect it to the outside of the ideal transformer. Okay, so the circuit remains same even if we change like that. Okay, therefore the same kind of equation we can write now. Okay, so using Kirchhoff law to primary and secondary law, if you apply it for primary, now you can understand that there is additional this resistor act as a additional effect as a additional voltage drop. Okay, again for the secondary also, the load voltage is dropped by this much due to this internal resistor. Okay, so therefore when you analyze them, you can consider this internal resistance of the winding as the external to our ideal transformer. Okay, so this part, the E1, E2, therefore these remain same. Okay, E1, E2 equal to N1, N2. Okay, N1, N2, and this is same way equal to I2 divided by I1. Okay, so for this part we can apply these ratios because now we have removed the internal resistance from the system. Okay, so if we don't connect it like external resistor, so then we can't apply this equation. Okay, this is always true, but this one it is difficult to apply. Okay, so this hold for only for okay, we said that it is only hold for the ideal transform. Okay, so therefore it is a not big change there. So what happened is we are connecting the resistors internally and analyze the transformer rather than keep them inside of the system. Okay, so therefore it is a same thing as earlier, apart from it has two resistors connected outside. Okay, so the effect is same. Okay, that is what you have to understand. So now let's move on to the next section. Okay, so you can understand that there's a two circuit in our system. Okay, so that means okay, so if you consider here, we have two circuits, that is primary circuit. This is primary circuit. Okay, and this is secondary circuit. Okay, this is primary circuit and this is secondary circuit. They are from a view, our point of view, they acted like two separate circuits. Okay, so therefore but definitely, since these are coupled together, these two coils are coupled together, there should be some relationship between the quantities of this circuit and this circuit. Okay, so now what we are going to do is to look at what is this relationship is. Okay, so that can be easily obtained by considering the equivalent resistance. Okay, considering the copper loss of the circuit. Okay, so now you know, you can understand that the copper loss can be written as I squared R. Okay, for primary, the resistor is R1, the current is I1, therefore the losses in the primary is, okay, the primary is I1 squared R1. Okay, the same way you can write the power copper loss for the secondary as I2 squared R2 squared. Okay, so now if I take the I1 squared out, the same equation can be written as like this as well. Okay, so now I2 I1. So now since again we considered that, okay, so this now R1 and R2 are external, so this is the ideal transformer. Therefore, for ideal transformer, we can write, okay, we can write I1 divided by I2 equal K. Okay, otherwise I2 divided by I1 is 1 over K. Okay, therefore here what we have is I2 divided by I1 square. Okay, so instead of I2 divided by I1, I can apply this from this equation, because now since resistance are external, so we can apply this equation. Okay, therefore the total copper loss I can write as I1 square R1 plus R2 divided by K square. Okay, so now the total copper loss here is look like only depend on the current at the primary. Okay, therefore this resistance, this part, it is the resistance actually seen from the primary. Okay, so it sees the primary resistance R2 as R2 divided by the transformer ratio square. Okay, therefore instead of this part, we can write R1 plus R2 dash. Okay, this R2 dash is the equivalent resistance of the secondary when we look at it from the primary. Okay, so then I can write R2 dash as R2 divided by K square. Okay, so the same way I can do the other way as well. That means I can look at about this circuit from the secondary. That means if I divide here by I2 squared, okay, so then what I can obtain is R2 plus K squared R1. Okay, so therefore equivalent resistance when we see it from the secondary, if I denoted it by R1 dash, I can write as K squared R1. Okay, likewise, so by referring to our preference side, so we can interchange the position of the resistors by doing that. Okay, that means instead of I am having this kind of circuit, what I can do is, okay, so I can disconnect the R1 circuit from here and short it out this, and I can have a R2 dash resistor here. Okay, so now it is the power E2 is directly connected to the load, whereas the resistor here is transformed to the primary side. Okay, by considering the convenience of the solving, so we can do other way as well. That means you can transform this R1 to the other side, the secondary side as well, by shorting out this resistor. Okay, so we can simplify this circuit using this kind of transformations. Okay, so what you have to understand is, so you can differ from a single side, and so then you can get the equivalent resistance when we see it from that side. Okay, so if you consider this equation, that means R2 dash equal R2 divided by K squared. So that is R2 dash is the equivalent resistance when we see the circuit from a primary point of view. Okay, so the vice versa also true. That means, so we can we can look at from the secondary, and we can get an equivalent resistance to primary resistor. Okay, so likewise you can interchange and transform from one side to another and change that. Okay, okay, so another important thing you have to understand here is, so now earlier we discussed that ideal transformers has no losses. Okay, but in actual case, in the actual transformers we have losses. Okay, so we have identified that since there is internal resistance in windings, there should be some loss on those due to those resistors. Okay, so now by considering the two resistors externally, now we can analyze our transformer with resistor. Okay, so now the next problem is, in a two system like this, all the flux produced by the primary are not fully coupled with the secondary. Okay, the same way all the flux created by primary does not couple or mutually coupled with itself as well. Okay, therefore if we draw the actual case, what we have is, by the primary there is a mutual flux. That means both have a common flux, that is the phi. Okay, so that is actually the effective flux for transform operation. Okay, but some part of the flux produced by the primary are going like this, and doesn't connect with the secondary. Okay, if you consider this flux phi p, it does not go through the secondary winding, and hence it is not coupled with this one. Okay, so therefore this flux doesn't involve in the energy transfer from primary to secondary. Therefore what happened is this flux is actually become wastage. Okay, so because the energy stored in this flux doesn't transfer to the secondary, and hence doesn't transfer to the our load. Therefore, so this kind of flux is called a leakage flux. Okay, so it is actually not coupled with the secondary and it is leaked. Okay, and it is coupled with itself, but that coupling doesn't create any energy transformation between primary and secondary. Okay, that means that become wastage at the end. Okay, so therefore this leakage flux also another source of power loss. Okay, so therefore we have to address that issue in our transform as well. Okay, so in earlier calculations and all the derivations we doesn't include this part. Okay, so since but we have to include it because this can be significant problem. Okay, so therefore in the primary we have leakage flux like that. In the secondary also we have same. Okay, so I told you that the secondary also produce some flux. Okay, the phi 2 there will be I2 dash additional current which neutralize that, but due to the current in the secondary there will be this leakage flux as well. Okay, those leakage flux doesn't cancel out by the I2 dash current. Okay, therefore these leakage fluxes happen at the both primary and secondary and source of power losses. Okay, so to understand what kind of thing it goes, we have to analyze. Okay, so actually you can understand that what happened here is even though this flux doesn't directly couple with the secondary, so that flux couple with itself. Okay, so if there is a such coupling occurred, there will be induced voltage. Okay, so if therefore there will be some voltage induced. Okay, the primary and secondary. Okay, so it can be calculated by again using the Faraday's law, the rate of change of flux. Okay, so rate of change of primary leakage flux is given suppose let's say this is the leakage primary voltage. Okay, leakage primary voltage. So this is the secondary leakage voltage. Okay, secondary leakage voltage. So now if you use the Kirchhoff law, if for primary I can write like this. Okay, V1 should be equal to induced EMF in the primary due to mutual coupling, and the induced EMF in the primary due to leakage fluxes, and the voltage drop across the resistor. Okay, so now you can see some portion of this voltage appear across like this as well. Okay, so which means the induced EMF will be reduced for same voltage if we have higher leakage flux. Okay, which means which means this act as a another voltage drop like this. Okay, it is like a some voltage drop across a resistor as well. Okay, so because it has some additional EMF. Okay, if you consider the secondary as well. Okay, So you can realize that our output voltage V2 is reduced due to this induced EMF. Okay, so I think you have to understand that there's a little mistake here. So in this diagram I have okay, in fact there's no problem. Okay, the diagram is fine. Okay, the diagram is fine. So you can understand that this E2L, okay, that means the leakage induced EMF in the secondary is opposing this current flow. Okay, so what happened is if we connect a load here, the load is try to get a current from the induced EMF or this coil. So what happened is the coil this induced EMF E2 is in a such a way that it opposes the oppose the current drawing. Okay, therefore it acts as another voltage drop. Okay, so that is why it become minus here. Okay, so here it is positive, okay, but it is here it is negative. Okay, so because current is coming, now it should oppose this I1 current. Okay, to oppose the I1 current, this should be positive. Okay, so here we have to reduce I2. In order to reduce I2, we have to the voltage, induced voltage should be minus. Okay, so you can understand that from the Lenz law. If you apply the Lenz law, so here it should be, I think this one should be I2 and R2. Okay, so some mistake there, you can change it and understand it. So since it is a induced voltage, we can represent the induced voltages by usually a coil. Coil means some reactances. Okay, so therefore the leakage flux in the primary be represented by reactance X1 and reactance X2, that is represent the leakage reactance of the secondary. Okay, okay, I think you have understand the effect of leakage reactance in a transformer. Okay, if you have questions regarding this, you can ask me. Okay, so now we have look at all the losses happen in the core and in the other components of a transformer. So now what we can do is we can write the full equations like this. Okay, with the inclusion of the reactances part, we can write the Ohm's law like this. Okay, and then you can understand that the total impedance of the primary Z1 can be written as the R1 plus JX1. Okay, the same way the secondary impedance become R2 plus JX2. So now if you recall the resistor, the same thing can be done to these impedances as well. So which means you can transform from one side to another, okay, primary to secondary and vice versa. So so if you look at how we can do that, so if you are referred from a primary, so then you have to if you look at from a primary, of course you have to think yeah, so if you are referring from a primary, we can write the impedance of the secondary as Z2 dash. So then when you are transforming from secondary to primary, you have to divide the impedance by K squared. Okay, K is the transform ratio. So then if you are doing the other way, which means if you have some impedance in the primary and if you are converted to secondary point of view, so then it becomes Z1 dash. So it can be calculated by multiplying it by K squared. Okay, K is the transform ratio or turns ratio. Okay, if I write K is the N2 divided by N1. Okay, the ratio between the secondary winding to primary winding. Okay, so now again, earlier we have omitted the internal resistance and the leakage fluxes. Now you have to construct the phasor diagram for with inclusion of those. Okay, so with the inclusion of that, you can do that. Okay, so it is not a big deal. You can use these equations. Okay, so you can use this equation and okay, you can write the same kind of equation to V2 as well. Okay, so then if you write it for V2, it become okay, V2 should be I think V2 minus I2 into R2 plus J X2. Okay, V2 can be written as like this using this equation 1 and this one 2. So by looking at them and using that, you can draw the phasor diagrams. Okay, so what should happen is okay, for unity power factor, this is the phasor diagram. Okay, so I will explain to you. So these other things are as earlier. Okay, this flux phasor. Okay, so that is the reference phasor. So then the no load current is the phasor is somewhat like this. So then suppose the E1 and E2 phasors are 90 degrees lagging the 90 degrees lagging the phasor flux phasor. Okay, so therefore if the okay, so then okay, so then you can draw the V2 as like this. Okay, so I think V2 is given by E2 minus E2 minus I2 into R1 plus GX1. Okay, so therefore, so if the I2 dash is somewhat like this and I2 is like this. Okay, so consider inductive load. Okay, not inductive load, the unity power factor load. So then if the voltage phasor V2 is in, okay, suppose it is in some angle between E2 and E1, so then the I2 should be also in phase with that. Okay, so if you know the I2 dash phasor, so you can draw the I2 phasor. V2 should be also in phase with the I2 because of the unity power factor. Okay, So then I2 R2 become in pace with the V2 as well. So then the I2 X2 is, since it is multiplied by J, which means it should be not lagging, it should be leading by 90 degrees. Okay, leading by 90 degrees. Therefore so since this is in a positive direction, this is 90, so therefore it should be in this direction. Okay, I2 X2 it should be in this direction. The addition of V2, I2 R2 and JX2 should be give the E2. Okay, so E2 phasor is known as here, so therefore you can easily find like this. So then again like earlier, if you go for the earlier side, so this is the equation for primary. So that is the V1 should be equal to minus E1 plus I1 R1 plus J I1 X1. Okay, so therefore what I have to do is I have to get the minus of the E1. So E1 is in this direction, therefore the minus E1 should be in this direction. Okay, it should be in this direction. So therefore so then I1 is given by the addition of I2 dash plus I naught. Okay, therefore if I can find the I2 dash from here and I naught from here, therefore if you get the addition, you get the I1. Therefore the I1 R1 phasor should be in parallel with the I1 phasor. So therefore this one and this one are parallel. So then again J I1 X1, it should be 90 degrees leading. Therefore okay, 90 degrees in this direction. Okay, you have to rotate your phasor by 90 degrees in a anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so then it should be equal to E1. So then the V1 phasor should be in this direction. Okay, so then this is the power factor angle, input power factor angle phi1. Okay, so if you draw the phasor, you can calculate it like this. Okay, the same way you can draw the other phasor diagrams as well. Okay, so this is the again phasor diagram for transform for lagging power factor. Okay, so if you consider about the I2 dash direction, you can get the I2. Since the for lagging power factor, the V2 should be leading. Okay, V2 should be leading, means it should be in anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so which means it is phi2 angle from here. Okay, so you can determine the V2 phasor. So then I2 and I2 R2 phasor should be parallel. So then the I2 X2 phasor should be perpendicular to the I1. Okay, so if you extend this one should be 90 degrees. So from that you can obtain the I2 X2 phasor. So again, as earlier, the V2 plus I2 R2 phasor plus I2 X2 phasor should give the E2 phasor, which is 90 degrees lagging our reference phasor. Okay, so the primary is, there's no difference. Okay, it is same as earlier, so you can easily obtain it like using the equation. Okay, so the shape remains same regardless of the lagging power factor. So only difference is happen in the phasors of the secondary. Okay, same way you can obtain the phasor diagram for leading power factors as well. So then now since the I2 is leading, that means the V2 should be in clockwise direction. Okay, so by angle of the load power factor angle phi2. Okay, so therefore again the I2 R2 should be in parallel with the I2 phasor, and the I2 X2 phasor should be 90 degrees and it should be perpendicular to the I1. Okay, so then this one should be 90 degrees. So then the addition of V2 I2 R2 plus I2 X2 give the E2 phasor. The same as earlier, you can obtain the phasor diagram like this. Okay, so here also the only difference is in the secondary side. You can easily obtain the other phasors like earlier. Okay, so now if you have any questions regarding these phasor diagrams, you ask me now. Students, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh? No questions, no? Okay. If you have questions, you can write it in the what is called the chat. Okay, write in the chat. I can see that. So I will answer them in the next week or something. Okay, so okay, now since we have talk about this, I will try to answer some of the questions that asked by some of the students last week. Okay, so some of the students leave some questions in the chat. So one asked me about the toroidal transformers. Okay, so the toroidal transformers means the toroid means the it is the shape is like a torus. Okay, torus means like a donut. Okay, donut shape. Okay, the if the core is a donut shape or cylindrical like this. Okay, if you have a hollow mid and cylindrical and this is hollow. Okay, so it should be completely cylindrical and like that. Okay, so when you wound the windings like this, okay, if you wind a coil around like this, so we call it a toroid. Okay, toroid, and the shape the shape is like a donut shape, we call it a torus. Okay, so the nowadays some power transformers are built in the windings are wound around in such a torus shaped course. Okay, so it is find that the flux linkage is much more better than the usual conventional transformers, and the other thing is it is much more compact. Okay, the flux linkage is small and it is much more efficient, and other reason is the it is more compact than the other one. Okay, you can understand that in a normal core we are develop the laminations by several, okay, like E-type something like this and I-type laminations likewise. Okay, but for this kind of thing you can use a small the same kind of disc. Okay, same kind of disc lamination and combine lot of them to build this kind of shape. Okay, so because of that the in nowadays for particularly for small transformers, okay, small transformers used in a circuitry, due to this compactness the toroidal transformers are utilized. Okay, so even before the power transformers are built in this kind of course, there's a very familiar example with windings wound on a such kind of core. Okay, so if you consider about the current transformer are most often wound on a this kind of toroid shape. Okay, or which means in a torus way. Okay, so the basic idea is in the current transformer is like a clip-on emitter, no? So that means we have like this. You have wounded the single winding like this. Okay, what we have is the secondary winding in the this toroidal core, and you can have the wire inside the middle hollow section. Okay, so then this act as a transformer, and that is the basic idea of a current transformer. Okay, so current transformers are usually come in this kind of toroidal shape and toroid core. Okay, that kind of shape core. So nowadays it is found that for power transformers also it is better to it provide much more better performance than the conventional one. Okay, therefore in for small transformers usually now we can have this kind of toroidal shape transformers, but for when we consider about the power transformers, still the use of the conventional method is the still employed. Okay, so okay, that is about the one question. There's another question about the mutual coupling. When we look at the equivalent circuit, we can answer that. Okay, so you can find the answer yourself. Therefore now I think you have understanding about this phasor diagram and the toroidal shape transformers. Now let's move on to the next part. Okay, so now we have individually understand the every aspect of the transformer. It means not every aspect, but most aspects such as internal resistance, so then core loss, so then we try to analyze the leakage flux. So then we come up with some solutions to analyze it with using them. Okay, so now we construct the complete phasor diagrams earlier, which involve all the phasors. Okay, so which means now we can calculate anything if you are given the numbers. Okay, that means if you are given input, output, and the resistance parameters using the phasor diagram, you can calculate anything you want. Okay, so but when you drawing a phasor diagram, which means you have to it is a method of the graphical method. Okay, so it is a graphical method, not a very analytical method. Okay, so what we want is to get some equivalent circuit of the transformer, so that we can use the analytical methods to calculate some parameters rather than having a graphical method like phasor diagrams. Okay, phasor diagrams are good for understanding things, but for calculation purpose it is very tedious. Okay, there you have to draw it for some scale and everything. Therefore it is not understandable to draw phasor diagrams to analyze the transformer. Therefore the best method could be to find the equivalent circuit, so that we can use laws like Kirchhoff laws, Ohm's law to calculate or analyze the circuit. Okay, so now our next step is to find out the equivalent circuit for the transformer. Okay, so now first let's consider the core again. Okay, as we know, core, when we analyze core, we identify that there are two components of current are there. So one is to magnetize the core. Okay, so which is sole the sole task of that current IM is to produce the magnetic field in the core. Okay, so therefore since it does not consume energy, so what we can do is so we can use a reactance like this to represent that behavior. Okay, there will be IM current passing. Okay, there will be no load current I0, that is consists with the two components IC and IM. since there are two components, we can separate the two components by adding two parallel paths like this. Okay, two parallel paths like this. So if you consider the IC path, so you identified that the loss can be written as V1 times IC. Okay, therefore the total power consumption at no load is occurred at this branch. Okay, therefore this kind of behavior we can model using a resistor. Okay, so since the resistor have power dissipation I squared R, it is perfect to model a loss like this. Okay, W naught V1 into IC. Okay, therefore we can replace we can substitute this parallel path with a resistor, because it is the path which responsible of the power loss. Okay, so power, that means power dissipation. The power dissipation occurred at normally resistor. Okay, not in the capacitor, not in the inductor. Okay, they stored energy, but they doesn't dissipate them normally. Okay, so when we consider about the magnetization, so what happened there is you have input some power. Those power is not dissipated, but it is stored in it. Okay, so therefore, so if we consider the power storing devices, what we can come up with is capacitor and inductor. Okay, so since it is a much more magnetic, related to more magnetic than the electrostatic, so we can model that part, energy storing part, as a reactance XM. Okay, so likewise, by just analyzing and using our prior knowledge, we can have a simple equivalent circuit for transformer core as like this. Okay, it has two parallel paths. One is responsible for magnetizing component. That means in magnetizing component means we store the magnetic energy in that circuit. So therefore we use some device such as reactance, which can store the energy as a model for that part. So then other parallel path responsible to power loss. So the power dissipation normally occurred at resistors. Therefore we model that part as a resistor. Okay, so then this part become our core model. Okay, so now part of our transformer, which is the core part, is already been resolved. Okay, now the next part would be to resolve the problems related to, or get an equivalent circuit related to the winding. Okay, so now okay, so now we are going to actually derive a equivalent circuit. Okay, so this is a little complicated task, but try to understand. Okay, so now this is where you can find the answers for what is mutual coupling is. Okay, so if you consider mutual coupling, what happen is, okay, if you have a coil, okay, suppose we have two coils. Okay, we supply current for this one. Okay, so due to this current, there will be some induced EMF E1, okay, and E2. Okay, suppose the number of number of turns is not required. Okay, so now what happened is, if this primary produces a magnetic field, okay, primary produces a magnetic field. Okay, I will show it the magnetic core first. Okay, Okay, now we realize that in the earlier magnetic core, we have primary winding, we have secondary winding. They are actually mutually coupled. Okay, mutually coupled means they have a common flux. Okay, they have a common flux. Okay, actually what happened is primary earlier developed the this develop some flux phi1. So then if there's a current in a secondary, there will be another flux produced by secondary called phi2. So likewise this is happening both locations. That means so this produces some flux and this produces the opposing flux to that. Okay, so again the induced EMF of primary decreases, and due to that the primary current increases, and again produce additional flux in primary. Okay, likewise this is happening initially, this is happening. Okay, so that means for several times primary try to overcome the flux produced by secondary, the secondary try to do the other way. Okay, so both are try to neutralize opposing fluxes. Okay, so what happened is after some time they come to realization that this cannot be happened. Okay, so we have to have a mutual flux that support both of the coils rather than neutralizing them. Okay, so then eventually it comes to some flux. Okay, actually this flux, this common flux is produced by both the windings. Okay, so earlier we only understand it it is done by a primary. Okay, so but actually it is not. Actually what happened is it is a mutual. That means the both coils contribute to this mutual flux. Okay, so therefore other than this mutual flux there will be some leakage flux. Okay, leakage flux that creates some self-inductance. Okay, so as we learned earlier, we have mutual coupling. So then the mutual coupling means, okay, so the actual mutual coupling means the current of the one coil is affect the voltage induced in the other coil as well. Okay, so if I write the equations, okay, so suppose we have two, okay, like this. Suppose the mutual inductance, okay, mutual inductance of the this coil is L1, this one as L2. Okay, so this inductance occurred due to the this leakage flux. Okay, so the flux produced by one coil coupled with itself. Okay, so in such situations we can model it as a self-inductance. Okay, so therefore the two coils have L1 and L2 self-inductance. So then what we have is another mutual flux. Okay, that is again can be represented by the mutual inductance. Okay, that is known as the mutual inductance. Okay, so you can understand that the flux linkage can be written as inductance times current. Okay, so I can write the flux linkage due to mutual coupling as, okay, the M into I1. Okay, so the same way I can write, okay, the mutual coupling to the secondary. Okay, this is to primary as M into I2. Okay, so therefore if I write the induced EMF equations, I can write, okay, so in the actually induced EMF as, okay, so L1 times dt. Okay, so that is the induced EMF in our core, not in the core, in the primary, due to its leakage flux. Okay, that means it is on coupling of fluxes. Okay, so then I have another component, that is I2 dt. Okay, so this can be either plus or minus. Okay, so this mutual coupling can happen so that the both fluxes, both initial fluxes of the primary and secondary are cancelled or are in a way that reduced. Okay, the if we say the initial flux is phi1, if the phi1 is greater than the mutual flux, so then we can call the, due to the effect of the secondary, our original flux of the primary is reduced. Okay, that, so then it is then we have to consider it as a minus. Okay, if it is other way, it is positive. Okay, so the it is depend on the direction. Okay, so the direction means the direction of the magnetic field created. Okay, so for coil, this can be north pole, this can be south pole. Okay, so this can be north pole, this can be south pole. Okay, if for considering coil, it is at the same direction, we denoted usually by the dot like this. Okay, so this indicates that if the north pole of this coil is at this, so north pole of this also at this point. Okay, so if the this dot be here, which means if the north is here, north is here. Okay, so if the both norths are like, okay, in the same direction, so what happened is the total what we have is the reduction of the flux. Okay, that means phi1 minus phi2. Okay, so if we have north and south poles, they add together. Okay, so therefore okay, E1 can be written as like this. Okay, so likewise, for our purpose, we can consider the our transformer model as like this. Okay, suppose the transformer ratio is A to 1. Okay, like this. So then you can write the this kind of uncoupled this is the coupled circuit, no? So you can use those coupled mutual equations and you can obtain an uncoupled circuit like this. Okay, so that is what does it mean by getting the equivalent circuit. Okay, so we have to uncouple the coupling of the two windings in order to obtain this. Okay, so that can be done like this. Okay, so I will I think this is a little long process, therefore I think today I wind up here, and next week I will explain this whole part. Okay, so okay.